I still get connection acceptances on LinkedIn from outreach that I sent probably even 6 or 7 weeks ago now. The thing that I see the most traction from is the outreach on LinkedIn. You all were sourcing roles faster than I could. You had good contacts on a lot of those, or at least I had a very clear list of items that I needed to accomplish. It's not something that you can just step back and let happen. You have to be actively engaged. If you're just passively looking and you're not taking that step, because it's a lot of outreach. I counted up, I think there were some days where I would send out between 40 and 50 emails. And
the following is a conversation with Steve Billingsley, who landed a Director of Cloud Infrastructure and Security Operations role with an insurtech company called Exceedance. And he was out of a job when he started with us, but landed a role within under 45 days of working with us. So now Steve is a second-time customer for us. So of course he was bought in that our method works, but this time he got his mind blown away for something else. Check out this candid conversation with him to see what that was and what his experience has been with us. All the best. Perfect. Thank you so much. And this is, to be honest, this is my favorite part of the call. Probably favorite part of our entire journey. Ultimately, hey, you have had a successful result. Seems like it happened within 2 months ish.
Pretty close, yeah.
Pretty close. Nice. So basically, I kind of wanted to understand. So you have been a second-time customer for us, right? Mm-hmm. Very different. I think we engaged a couple of years ago. Very different market, and we were also very different in our way of operations versus right now. Hopefully, we have improved to gone towards the better. So wanted to understand kind of what made you want to come back to us. Again, the second time, and then what kind of differences did you see, good or bad? Both will talk through those, but at a high level, what has your experience been here?
Coming back was easy because I had good success with your organization the first time around. Even though it was a kind of a different model then, it was structured in a way that was easy to follow. Mm-hmm. You all were sourcing roles faster than I could. You had good contacts on a lot of those, or at least had, advice for the outreach portion of it, which is always where I struggled probably the most. So to me, it was an easy call when things went, unfortunately went sideways with that role and the company closed. I did try just tweaking the resume that we had used the first time around and tried to do it on my own. And I was really getting no traction at all. I probably did that for about 5 weeks before I reached out to you again. And this time around, it was a very different experience, much more hands-on, much more engaged. That concierge approach that you're taking now really made things easy. I had a very clear list of items that I needed to accomplish. This outreach, here's the applications. Once that was done, very solid and targeted outreach messages to anybody who might be associated in the hiring process. And it was very easy to follow. I mean, I treated it like a job. First thing I did every morning was get up and see what messages I needed to send, what new applications were available. And then a couple of times I saw roles that Ashita hadn't quite found yet. And we cooperated very well in terms of getting those up there. And after a little bit of a slow start, I was really surprised. I had a much greater response this time around and a much higher volume of interviews.
Oh, no, so that's ultimately, so it ended up working out. And that's one area, the start. So perceptibly, it was slow. What can we do to improve that part?
I think a lot of it had to do with timing, honestly. As I started getting contacts back from the hiring managers or HR recruiters, it seemed as though PTO was a huge factor because we were hitting it in that June, July timeframe. So school was out in most markets and there was a lot of PTO. I think more than one of the interviews started off with sorry it took so long to get back to you, but everybody's out on PTO. So I think that was the biggest impact for that. I don't know that there was really anything to do, because it takes time when you send out that many messages for people to start to pay attention. I still get connection acceptances on LinkedIn from outreach that I sent probably even 6 or 7 weeks ago now, because not everybody, always follows those. And sometimes people are a little bit later in responding to them. But, also I think I can't prove it, but I think there's something with the LinkedIn algorithm. When you're in there actively sending connection requests and having them accepted, I think it floats you to the top of the algorithm, and it shows your activity.
Maybe it could be. And also, I like to say, this is the algorithm of our universe. Maybe wherever you're putting the attention towards, you're already you start seeing those patterns, you start getting noticed. I mean, that's just such a woo thing to say, for how logically we think through things. But I'm a big believer there. I thought when you mentioned about the time it took to I thought you mentioned the time it took to build your resume, because so that was relatively quicker.
No, that happened very quickly. Once I had the onboarding call with Karen, it was within 2 or 3 days. I think they had turned the resume around. We had a great foundation from the one that you all had created the first time around 2 years ago. So there was just fine tuning and adding some of the things that I'd accomplished at the role that I was at most recently. When I talked about things kind of starting slowly, it was from the time I sent outreach until I got responses from recruiters or from hiring managers. And that's really, I think, had, the PTO issue was really the key factor there. No, your team was super responsive and always had everything, whether it was roles that I found, getting them added into Asana, or the outreach was always prepared very quickly. If I applied to something, it was never more than a day or two before the outreach was ready to go.
We work on that. I'm glad that you were able to see that. I was kind of more so Karan was driving very hard about the same day delivery. So right prior to, I think, we onboarded you, there was this whole stuff about hey, same day delivery. There's 4 sprint cycles. We just obsessed over give me all of give me the data in terms of where exactly can we not meet same day delivery, and that kind of I think that helped teams set a new bar. And then there's a lot of we were also able to get out of operate at a different standard. So that, I mean, I'm glad that you were able to see that visibly there as well. What do you think, since you have tried things on your own, you've worked with us as well, you have seen the job market and this and you unfortunately saw it at a time where sometimes when it's one thing, the last job search was hey, I'm planning to do so, but it's another thing that is it happens so abruptly. So you've seen both of those scenarios. What do you think is I mean, we know the answer, but I would like to understand your perspective. What works according to you in this whole process that we follow here at Wolf Mentoring?
The thing that I see the most traction from is the outreach on LinkedIn, not just to the HR or talent acquisition, but to decision makers around CIOs, directors, VPs. I can tell you the role that I did land, what got my resume noticed was that outreach to LinkedIn to somebody who wasn't in the hiring chain, but was in the IT organization. And we started a conversation back and forth on LinkedIn after he accepted the connection request. And it was him putting me in front of the right people, making sure that my resume was floated to the top. I was told, most of the time that I interviewed, I was told that they would get 500 or more applications for the role. So finding a way to float yourself to the top, when there's 500 people, there's a large number of very qualified individuals there. that little step to stand out makes all the difference. And speaking with multiple hiring managers, that was very clearly because they asked me, "Oh, such and such spoke so highly of you. How did you meet them?" I said, "I reached out on LinkedIn, and we started a conversation."
That's pretty awesome. And then lastly, I want to understand, like, who would be the kind of person that if you were to ever recommend this these services to, like, who do you think would benefit mostly from it?
Anybody, I know you specifically focus on the technology space. Anybody who's in my position, IT director, trying to get that, bump up to VP, which I know from your, you make that very clear a lot of times in your talks on LinkedIn, that's a tough challenge. But I saw a lot of traction even on VP roles in this instance, and had multiple interviews even at that level. I think if you're in that senior manager, director, and VP level in technology, so at the director level from infrastructure where I was, or software development, I think all of those roles are going to see pretty strong traction from this.
I see. And then more so, like, do you think this would work for anybody, or do you think this would work for specifically, like there are people that we encounter that like somewhat more passively looking. There are people who we encounter like, hey, we do not know. We are just like testing it out in the market. Then there are people who were very clear, like, hey, this is my objective. This is where we want to land. And then we have a conversation with them saying like, hey, this is what we can realistically achieve. This is maybe we can try. We cannot guarantee that. So in that realm, do you feel like, hey, like, if you were to say, like, with the complete done for you model now that we are pushing out, like, we're just like, give us your resume, talk about your career, and that's it. Like, let us even make the application, let us even run your outreaches and everything. Do you think this could work for anyone? One of
the things I saw is it's not it's not something that you can just step back and let happen. You have to be actively engaged. So if you're just passively looking and you're not taking that step, because it's a lot of outreach. I counted up, I think there were some days where I would send out between 40 and 50 emails and about the same number of LinkedIn connection requests. If you have the time to dedicate, to me, that's somebody who's actively looking probably gets more success. If you're going to passively look, you'd better still spend the time to do the outreach, because I'm a firm believer that was the key. Just because of the feedback that I got in the times when I had interviews, it was, wow, it was great that you did X because you got yourself noticed, where the other 499 were just in a pile.
Yeah. Oh, well, then that's glad, because that's great as well. Like, so kind of like also, I mean, each time somebody succeeds with that, we kind of like add that as a further validation, like, hey, this works. And we want to, because a lot of the time, and this is now not so much that we have to convince ourselves whether it works or not, but more so we want to take this out in the market where like people are convinced that like, hey, you need some sort of like access to some secret hidden job market. And I know like where the language comes from, a lot of it has been perpetuated by it's this gimmick sells easy in our industry. So like, some actors do perpetuate this. Now, what we like, the kind of thing I would like to establish is like, hey, just do the basics. Like, somebody has a job, they have a problem, you are the solution. Just like reach out to them, tell them, and this works. And so that's why like it helps us like to have success like yours, where like, hey, yes, this is what exactly worked. This is how it helped me get the interview. Once I was in the interviews, I will able to move past that and kind of build that mountain of stack where like, let anybody else do the like if I can show you somebody the results, I don't have to do much convincing. It's just, it is what it is.
I can give you a prime example. I still am wrapping up interviews. I accepted this role because it's been several months and I need to get back to work. There's still one or two opportunities that are filtering through. And I happened to have an interview yesterday with a hiring manager for a very large multi-billion-dollar worldwide company. And she very clearly said, your outreach got you noticed because I don't have time to look through the 500 applications that I have. I'm looking for somebody who solves my problem. And those were her exact words. And so the outreach made all the difference to getting my foot in the door and getting the chance to talk. Now, you still have to impress. You still have to have good interview skills. But getting yourself noticed is the key in this. And I don't, there's no magic to it. It's diligent work. You all are finding the contacts, crafting the message to them. So it's very specific. And it's also then going after the roles that you know where you're a good fit. I found the first time we did this, because I was struggling to make traction in the Massachusetts market, coming from outside of it. I was applying to a lot of roles where I knew I wasn't a solid fit. This time, if it was not an 80 or an 85% fit, I didn't even look at it. It wasn't worth the time, because there were plenty of roles where there was that solid alignment that I could focus on. And I think it made a huge difference.
Right. Yeah, no. And so in that sense, like another thing then I draw from there is like, when you came into our service, of course, you were a second-time customer. So when you came into our services, the way it sounded like is like you did exactly how we would love to follow the process. Like, hey, just down to the T, just do this and nothing else. And it seemed like that just worked out for you. As pretty much.
It did. I did not. I sent the outreach. If anybody followed up, and I had questions about it, Guttin and his team were fantastic. And there was a role that reached out about, hey, this role requires relocation. Are you comfortable with that? And I really wanted to nail the response, because that relocation issue has been an issue before. And they helped me craft the perfect response, and it triggered an interview within a few days.
Perfect. No, that's great. And when do you start?
Monday.
Oh, so are you doing something like celebrations or anything, or just like going to work straight away?
I've had enough time off, so I did not want to go through and linger on that. My wife and I are going to get away for a week this weekend. Nice. Take a little bit of time and drive up the Maine coast and get away for just a couple of days. But no, I'm anxious to get back to work. I don't.
Oh no, of course I can imagine. So, no, 100%. And
when they said they were ready to start on Monday, that was 100% fine with me.
No, perfect. And then I would imagine like that area, the northeast, the Maine, and everything. This is like last month of summer, and then you can. I would imagine that would be a beautiful area. I've never been there. I've never been any north of New York, but would love to come there and see this.
It's still warm enough to enjoy the beach, but not. But yeah, you can see fall here comes pretty quick, starting in September. So it'll start to cool off, and I already noticed for some reason I was up about 5 this morning, and in the summertime it's already the sun's up here at 5 a.m. It was still dark at 5 a.m. So you can already tell things are starting to change.
Yeah, no, 100%. But no, Steve, glad that, of course, like you put your test second time. I'm glad that, of course, it worked out at the speed that it worked out. I'm really happy to, again, have you in the future, of course. And then even right now, wish you all the successes. And thank you for taking the time out to speak with me about the services.
Yeah. Thank you. And please extend my gratitude to your team. You guys were fantastic and could not be more pleased with the way everything went.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll do so.